Good. We have another panel. First, we're going to kick off with Nili Goldberg, who's going to do a fast and cool presentation related to Brandsforce and consumer engagement. We're then going to have 10-minute presentations from 5 very diverse but esteemed presenters, and then more Q&A. And that's your job. You do the Q. So as we get settled, if we're ready up here for our presentation, I'm going to first introduce Nili Goldberg. Thank you.
Hello. That was a very tall guy before me that was here. Good morning. Good late morning. I hope you had your coffees and you're all ready to go. When I was first invited to speak with this crowd, what we talked about was engagement, and this is what's going to follow up. Thinking of engagement, I actually wanted to break it down for a minute, because when we talk to brands and advertising agencies, as well as VCs and investors, it's this word, engagement. Everyone wants engagement. But at the end of the day, if we don't know how to reach a point, or we don't really know how to better define what we want, it's kind of going to get really, really hard to get there along the way. So better defining a goal, i.e. better defining engagement, would really help us as brands and advertisers to reach that goal and increasing engagement. So without further ado, I'd just like to share a little bit of what we've been doing and our understanding and our learning of how to break it down. Reverse engineering engagement will lead us to 3 things that we'd like to answer. Once we have an answer for all of these 3, I can nearly reassure you that your campaign is going to rock the numbers that you're wanting. The first one is, what is the engagement type? What am I actually looking for? Is it insights? Is it content? Is it shares? Is it reach? Fan numbers? I know everyone's still keen about accumulating more and more fans. What kind of content would I like to generate? And then who would I like to engage with? Who are the people who are most relevant for me to create that kind of deeper interaction? And the third, of course, is what kind of win-win situation will I be providing for the people who I engage with? Because at the end of the day, it's just like at home. You know, it has to be a win-win situation for both sides, or 4 sides, or whoever. So starting off with, who do we actually want to engage with, or who do we want to tackle? There are 3 different levels there as well. The first one are the bystanders, anyone who connects with the brand, be it online, offline, or at a supermarket for that matter if we talk about retail. Anyone who's a bystander who comes across our brand. The second one is the fans, and fans to me are not just Facebook fans, but rather fans, followers, loyal customers, the ones that are listed to your newsletters, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a whole broad database out there for you to tackle, your fans. Those people are actually looking for a deeper engagement. They don't just want to talk about the general information that they can get online, but they would like to know a bit more about your product, more about prices, more about service, et cetera, or mostly more about what's in it for them. And then you have your ambassadors, the ones that are the top-notch engagers for you. Who are they? Those ambassadors, oh, and we're using Prezi like a really high-tech company. There are 3 types of ambassadors. And now we're also going to talk about what can they give you and what's in it for them. Some ambassadors come in there for the rewards, and that's like most of the platforms that we've seen up to now. Give them a prize, give them a coupon, give them some kind of merchandise, and you have them. The other type of ambassadors are the ones that are there for acknowledgement. They actually want a tap on the back and a nice thumbs up from the brand to really give them a sense of belonging. And then the third are all about status. They want to join a club, and they want to be a part of a club that not everyone else can join. And that would make them feel special. At the end of the day, it's about feeling special, but there are 3 types of ways to getting there. The interesting part is that based on what kind of specialty you want to provide or you want to bring, that's also the engagement outcome that you can expect. So when we talk about rewards, it's mainly about the sharing, increasing reach. It's usually more periodical. It's not something that is long-lasting. I don't want to really refer to interpersonal relationships, but I guess you can use your imagination where it comes to rewards and what you can gain and how long it can last. I see the people who are laughing, and we'll talk about that later. The second type is acknowledgement. I really want to feel that I am part of something and that someone has noticed what kind of impact I have generated. It's a long-term relationship, well, a longer-term relationship, of course, and the more I give feedback and the more I acknowledge those people and tap on their shoulders and give them praise, I have them for life. The third, of course, is the ones for status, and that is a real combo of what we can, what kind of gifts and rewards they're going to get, but also, again, what kind of badges, rewards, and where they're going to put their names. So when we were working with Clinique, we got so much out of the ambassadors just for telling who they are and how they won. And this is a post you can see that we had on Facebook that followed with recruitment of another 0.5% of their whole database. Just for that, no extra media costs. As a brand, we already said you can increase your fan base, reach, spread conversations, and of course, create lots of content and insights. Talking about expectations and numbers, these are the top-notch numbers, of course, but it's easy to get there. A huge click-through rate, sharing rate, polls and participation, gathering insights, and very interesting, relevant content that your ambassadors are going to be generating for you that would fit the campaigns you run. All you got to do in order to do that, in order to reach the engagement you want, is define the desired engagement, content, insights, or reach. Typecast the ambassador groups based on that engagement level you're looking for, and then connect content and rewards based, again, on what you want out of your ambassadors. That's the holy grail for us at Brandsforce, and we've seen it work, and I'll be happy to share more about it whenever you like.
Thank you, Nili. So we're going to go from general to specific about the engaged consumer, beginning with Mikal Hallstrup, who's going to talk not just about media, but essentially UX, UI, user experience, as it relates to an engaged consumer across industries. 10 minutes from each presenter, then Q&A from you guys. Not your first visit to Israel, correct?
No, I think it's the third, actually.
Good.
To be back here.
Good. With the amazing title of Chief Visionary Officer. So if you hadn't had enough coffee and your eyes aren't working very well.
Actually, you know, I regret that I brought that title. I'd rather have you judge it on the presentation, but let's see how it goes.
Okay. Be careful what you ask of an Israeli audience.
Yeah, I know. I heard about it. No, thanks a lot for having me, and thanks for some really inspiring presentations this morning, Andy. Happy to be back here in Startup Nation. So just a bit about ourselves, so you know where I come from. I'm not a media guy. I'll try to anchor myself here. Usually I'm running around without bringing anything to the presentation, but okay. Is that better? Okay, wonderful. Right. Just a bit about myself and the company I come from. We're a strategic design firm helping a lot of different companies across industries, across media, to innovate. We are 288 people, 25 of them actually here in Tel Aviv. So we have a lot of fun, spread over 14 offices all over the world. We work for a lot of clients. It's not the bragging list of clients. It's basically just to show you that these are our end users in a way, or some of the end users. And it seems, no matter what we do for these guys, some of them, have need for industrial design, doing insulin injectors. Others need solutions in, mobile services, mobile banking, or up to large-scale customer interaction in a digital car showroom, for example. It seems that all these guys, even though they know their tech, they know their product and so on, have a hard time figuring out when it comes to the user experience. How do you engage users, actually? And one of our clients told us once, you might be right. We know our product. We don't know the customer experience or our users really well. It's a bit like, driving with a foggy windscreen. We can't see anything, but at least we're shooting ahead with good speed, he said. Well, I couldn't agree less. And others have this problem about, we got our product right, we got our service right, and then they're totally denying the fact that users can't use the stuff they're putting on the market, right? We call it denialism. It's like sticking your head into the ground. Happens a lot of times, actually. It's a funny syndrome, actually. So what we're trying to urge these guys to do is, because what they use is, deadline is the biggest inspiration for them. They speed from what they think is the challenge to the solution, right? Just straight line, shortest way. So we try to urge them to think a bit before they define where they want to go. So span the bow, as we say, lift them up a bit, explore, strategize, gain some better user insights, get to a stage where you can start rethink not only your solution but your problem, and then getting back on the ground again with a great solution, hopefully at a higher level. So a bit about media. I had some trouble figuring out what is media nowadays. I mean, it's everything from press and print to new media that don't even consider themselves media, I guess. Some funny pictures I got from one of my colleagues. I mean, the inauguration of the Pope looked like that in 2005. Have you seen those images? And that's the iPope, right? 8 years later, everybody with a kind of touch device in his hands contributing, not only watching it, but really taking part in it. We've seen the touch kids rising, right? The touch generation with an increasing tech literacy. I got an iMom, I just realized, she's doing all the public self-service on an iPad now, and she's pretty good at it, actually, and that really surprised me, that both, really youngsters and even my mom, they're doing this now. And the thing is, wondering a bit about this is, what is media actually? I mean, is Fuelband, is that media? I'm sure they don't consider themselves being a media company, but they collect data, they bring back content to users, they interact with users, and so on. So maybe, that's a future media company. Something we've been discussing a lot at Designit is that, nowadays, and all our customers focus on what's happening in the tablet field, really. What's going to happen tomorrow? What about the big touch? You remember Minority Report, right? Looked like the future, but I think it's going to happen soon. How do we interact on these big screens? And then the wearables, and maybe even the transplantables. I think it's really worth looking at, because it's going to have a huge impact on user expectations and the things we bring to the market. So that's a heavy one. I'm trying to do it fast before I get the 5-minute sign. So what's happening basically, and which opens this whole opportunity space of creating better user experiences, that the skills required to use tech is really dropping. You can say what you want, but that's a fact. It's gotten so easy to use tech. On the other hand side, the tech literacy, as I showed you, the 3-year-old kid buying stuff on iTunes or something like that, is rising. So that whole gap out there really promises a lot in the future. And then, speeding a bit ahead, but the paradox is really that the world is so full of crappy stuff. A lot of smart, is there any engineers here? No, okay, so I'm going to use the word engineer as a placeholder for non-designers, if that's okay. Hope you don't mind. But a lot of smart guys, teams at big corporations really figured it out. The perfect solution, right? Focusing on security, focusing on the solution. Nobody really thought of what's the customer experience, what's the user experience. Try to walk their shoes going through it. And I'm not saying this to make like unsafe airports or anything. I'm saying it because we're missing a huge opportunity, waiting there, standing in line and so on. It's really, if you ask me, it's a stupid experience. It's an undesigned experience that just designed itself because nobody else did. Tried that? Okay. I think it's called Rap Rage in the US, and they have a whole industry for tools, for opening packaging. The guy bought a scissor once and figured out, gosh, I need another pair of scissors just to open the box. But that is called Rap Rage, and I think somehow it reminds me, it's the archetype of problem, archetype of pain point somehow. Seeing, a lot of smart people, again, developing the perfect clamshell packaging, delivering on all parameters, right? It portions, it brands somehow, it keeps the product safe. The only thing it doesn't is you can't open it, right? And that's kind of a paradox. So how much time do I have left? In good shape? 1 minute. Whoa, good. So just to share a bit of our experience working with end users and what we do on a daily basis at Designit. We do a lot of direct interaction with all stakeholders, being suppliers, vendors, end users, and the company itself, trying to release, you know, the corporate creativity that is in a company latent. What I would advise you guys, I mean, you're a pretty tech-driven economy as I see it. In Denmark, it's the exact opposite. We don't have tech, we only focus on the users, so what's the point? But the thing is, do a lot of interaction with stakeholders and make it a corporate habit. Co-create with them. You'll be amazed. Some of the end users are smarter than you are. You can even make them design for you. You got to facilitate it, but they're good at it. And then don't design, you know, great solutions for problems that don't exist, right? I don't know if I would love that one, maybe, but I think, you know, the world needs different stuff. Took you some time to get that one, but it's, you know, it's like SkyMall design, right? We don't need that. And then, you know, I was just thinking about this word paywall seemed to be a big topic, at least in the old media industry. And what about if we started rethink paywall, maybe redefining the very word, because a wall is something that keeps people out, and once you get in, you can never get back out again. Why not rethink it, just like Tesco did, saying a wall is an interactive surface for connecting with users, right? What about that? I think that could be great to apply some creative processes on rethinking that concept. And this one of my colleagues, good friends, said this, and I think it's a beautiful way of finishing my presentation off. We don't want to live edited lives, we want to live creative lives, and I think that's what this era is all about. Thank you very much.
Very good. Commando Israeli style, I like that, climbing over the... Adi's can't wait to do his presentation. So going from sort of the broad design theme, as we talk about rethinking engagement, we're going to look ahead and what they're working on at Microsoft about the future of engagement. So Adi, when you're ready, please.
Okay. So good morning, everybody. My name is Adi Diamant, and I'm the director of Microsoft Innovation Labs in Israel. I'm not going to speak today about Microsoft product. This is not what I do. In a way, in my team, we have 3 domains of expertise. One is computer vision. Some of you probably saw the Xbox One reveal last week, and my team took a very major part in the computer vision side of it. And we also deal with e-commerce and monetization and social networks, measuring influence, e-commerce campaign, etc. So in a way, my session is going to complete, it's Mikal, right? What Mikal said, because I'm a great believer in the user experience world. And I would like to provide a more holistic approach and talk about few of the trends that we should expect in the future from corporates like Microsoft, probably from Google as well. So today, the way we see it, everything is going to be in the cloud, as Professor Eli Don, right, said. For example, for the first generation of TV, we need cloud, we need clouds of clouds, we need interaction between clouds and between people. But in a way, most of the content today is stored on clouds. Some clouds, it's structured, and we should consider it as unlimited data. And this becomes a real problem. I'm not talking about the technical the technology behind the infrastructure to collect all this data and to structure it, but as a users, as consumers, we are facing unlimited data, a huge amount of data about anything for everybody. On the other end, we have many devices. For me, it doesn't matter if it's iOS, Android, Windows, it really doesn't matter. It also doesn't matter that if it's a TV, a laptop, or a mobile phone, what we used to call, or some of you still call, as the 3 screens. For us, there are no more 3 screens. It's all about smart displays. In fact, people say that in several years, it will be cheaper to build a smart display wall than any other material. So we need to deal with unlimited data and provide it to a huge range of smart displays, which are limited in size, limited in capability, and actually all these devices are serving us in very different situations, in car, in office, at home. And we need to find out a way to take all this unlimited data and present it in the most relevant way to the user, according to the current situation, the intent, the relevance. You can think about driving a car, and today if we take everything we know about your path or your car from the cloud, and let's say we are going to present it on your window shield, you will see nothing, just data and information. And the goal is to find what is the relevant information. If I'm driving from my home to my office, I don't need the navigation system. I may need some traffic information, but I don't need the map and the arrows to navigate me through the system. So it's about relevancy, intent, and bringing the right content at the right time to the right users. And for that, we need a layer that is called BI and services. And now yesterday when I talked to Levi about my presentation, he said, oh, BI, this is for enterprises. So no, BI in the term we are using it right now, BI and services, are for consumers. How we actually handle this unlimited amount of data and make it relevant to the user. For this we need, some of it come from the BI enterprise tools, but how we bring all this data in the most relevant way using BI and services tools to the devices. And of course, we need the natural user experience to control all these smart devices and tell these devices what we are looking for. So just a small example, everything is moving to the services side, even Office. And just to demonstrate what BI for consumer means, in the new Office, we call it Office 13, today when you need to build a new chart, you get a recommendation. Those of you who are using older version of Office know that you have the tables and you need to create the chart. You go through a 20 steps wizard just to make sure that you get the right chart. In this demo, we are using the crowd, the wisdom of the crowd, and actually Office knows from the cloud what millions and millions of users did before about the same data, and now we can recommend you exactly what is the best chart to present based on this experience. So this is only a small demo of BI capabilities for consumers. Next, you need to keep in mind that the big enterprises are digitizing everything. We digitize the physical world. So today, it's not about only digital content. We have pictures, we have music, we have documents, everything is already digital. But we also have the retailer catalogs in a digital way. And we have plenty of sensors around the world, traffic cameras, GPS, surveillance cameras, and many other sensors in the world that we can actually collect a lot of information about it and present you links from the digital world to the physical world. So now we know exactly what type of stores, how they look like. We can actually attract people not to buy on your e-commerce site, but to get you down to the stores and in the United States, less in Israel. Today we can close the loop. We know exactly where you pay, when you pay, using your credit card. Even when you park your car in a parking lot near the store, we know you are there. So it's not only about CPM and CPC in the display ads, display advertising. It's more about click per action or per actual sale between the digital and the physical world. So we know about the stores. We enable wallets, any kind of wallets. Again, it's not about paying methods. It's also about transaction data that can be analyzed. In the social networks, we know exactly who are the influencers, who are the connectors. Someone used the terms ambassadors. We know how to find them in the social networks and to give insight to the user. And we keep timeline. We can actually gather all the digital information. In fact, in the cloud, many people think about the cloud as kind of server for their own corporate, but it's not the idea of the cloud. The idea of the cloud is that corporates and companies and businesses can actually share information and insight between them. So if you are today a new e-commerce company, you may work with kind of recommendation system from the cloud that actually gather more information from other companies that are like you. So you don't need to build the entire ecosystem by your own. So this is about digitizing the physical world. And the last, we actually blend the world. It's not about data in the cloud. It's about data and people. Now we know the connections. Thanks to the social networks, we can actually combine between, we call it document. Everything is called documents on the digital asset. We combine documents and people. We actually represent you as an avatar, so we can learn a lot about your personality and your relationship with others. So once we blend everything using augmented reality, social networks, combining in the cloud of cross companies, we can actually merge the digital and the physical world. I have 1 more minute. And last, it's not about one screen. It's not like today we watch TV and then we take our mobile phone. We do everything at the same time, in parallel. At least I can see my kids right now. They're playing or watching a movie on the computer, using their tablet and their mobile phone on the same time. So it's not about what kind of screen I'm watching at a given moment. It's about using multiple screens at the same time. And this is, for example, one of the, it's called the smart glass technology, that actually take advantage of the fact that people actually watch TV while holding your tablet or mobile phone. And again, it's not a question of operation system. It works cross devices, cross operation systems. So we can actually find new ways to enhance the content, enhance advertising capabilities or monetization in general, just by understanding that today users are using several screens at the same time. So just to sum up what I was trying to say in the last 10 minutes, take advantage of the cloud. It's not about using an external server. It's about leveraging third-party services that help anyone to enhance or leverage his business. Take the fact that you are connected to the physical world because we are living in a physical world and we should use the digital to enhance our life and use a multi-screen experience as well. Always on, anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Adi. Yael, Dr. Yael Almog. So we're going to actually transition from about sort of the future and the experience to a very different form of engagement with your consumer advocacy, and the approach they're taking at Gitam BBDO, if we're ready. When these are finished, we're going to do some Q&A, so get your questions ready. We also, we're hearing cloud versus crowd, because our last presenter is very crowd-centric. It'll be fun to see those two put boxing gloves on. It'll be fun to see any people put boxing gloves on, so I definitely encourage boxing gloves. Good.
Hi, good morning. In my day-to-day activities in Gitam, I basically consult clients in how to transform their strategy into a business strategy that adapts better to the social and business changes. I was asked to speak today about how digital innovation changed the way we do business. I'd like to start first with a short video that you might like that exemplifies the strategy or the business attitudes the corporation had in the last century. Okay, I think you got the idea. We do have some businesses who act like this today, but we all know that this kind of attitude is going to diminish. We're going to see less and less of this. So let's see where we're heading. This is an example of something that happened last week, and probably many of you have seen it on Facebook. Well, a resident of Tel Aviv got a parking ticket. He was late in just 10 minutes. So he wrote a letter in rhyme, humorous rhyme, to the municipality. And apparently, surprisingly, the mayor Huldai responded soon thereafter and posted his reply on Facebook, answering in similar rhymes, and of course saying that they were trying to keep the order in Tel Aviv, but of course they'll try to consider his request favorably. So what we're seeing here is actually a change in attitude of institutions towards consumers or citizens, and on the other hand, consumers' attitudes that have, or consumer demands or expectations that have changed, and this is a 21st century strategy or behavior, very different from what happened at the car rental with Steinfeld. And I'm sure that most of us think that technical innovation and the introduction of social networks have done that impact. So I'd like to share some information that I have to change this, that will change the misconception and will shed a different line on the process of things. Okay, so we see in the past about 40 decades a decrease in the do you hear me well? A decrease in the trust of consumers in institutions. The next thing we see is in the past few decades also increase in social inequality globally, all over the world in most countries. In addition to that, in the past 30 years, there has been a process of massive concentration in the power and influence of major corporations. You can see here that 30 years ago, the top 10,000 multinationals held about 31% of the OECD GDP, versus more than 73% 30 years later, which means that the power and influence that corporations have, large corporations have worldwide, is similar and comparable to the power of nations in their ability to do good or to do harm. And also what happens is that consumer groups, it's much more easier for them to spot down those who do harm and to do some action. And indeed, we see in over 50 years a sharp rise in the number of advocacy groups. It means that society at large, consumers or citizens, become more and more aware at the power that they have at hand to change, to have impact on how affairs are going and to change the course of things. Having all that, having all these global macro trends, made the public mature and ready to receive the social networks and very happy to use it. And so after all these macro trends were existent, then came the information age. So if we want to specify what was the role of social networks or digital innovations in the whole omnivore we're seeing right now, or in the whole social change we're seeing right now, it did not cause it, but rather it enabled the public to speak their voice up in a much stronger manner, or rather it amplified it to magnitudes that were not imaginable before. So what we have now is that our consumers that are very cynical, skeptical to every effort that companies do to make them like them, and actually not only that they expect companies not to pollute, not to do harm, it's not legit anymore, they go further, and now consumers expect companies to do good. They expect them to take responsibility to tackle social problems, or at least issues relevant to their stakeholders. And practically, they expect a corporation to assume a social purpose that will be coherent and long-term and specific to that company. Restarting in 15 minutes? Okay. Technology. So, in addition to that, in terms of consumers' expectations, they demand that corporations speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, or so help them God. What happens if corporations are being caught when they're not being honest? They're being instantly judged and hanged in the new marketplace, which is the social networks. And on the other way around, they're also being rewarded when they exceed consumers' expectation and support. The psychological phenomenon that underlies the activity of social networks and how they had impact on the business arena is shown in this slide. This is another technological advancement. It's an ad that senses when people look at it. So we have a husband who beats his wife, but when the ad senses that you look at it, he will stop. And this is a very very characteristic of humankind, that we don't exhibit our dark side in public. The bad things that are being done, the misbehaviors, are done only at private, and there is a big discrepancy between, as it is, there is a big discrepancy between the public image that corporations used to portray outward relative to the who they really were, like every person, every human being does. And now, with the with the presence of social networks, actually there is no private turf, and everything that we do can be posted in the speed of the light of the net on the social media. There's no curtain to hide before, and what this causes is that corporations have to check and double check all their interfaces with the various publics, and they have to find a corporate voice that will, and they have to speak the same with all publics at all interactions. Otherwise, they'll be hanged. So we see all these stakeholders saying that companies cannot chase after consumers, be nice to them. On the other hand, they will not honor the capital markets, or will abuse their suppliers or employers or employees. So that, as I said before, the impact of the societal changes and the change in attitudes and the social media is that they have to change. Corporations have to change their day-to-day operations and their day-to-day decision making. And as we see here, it's what we see here is a new version or a new generation of capitalism. I'm sure you've heard the concepts of sustainability, creating shared value, or conscious capitalism. They all stress the two basic components that I spoke about, running your business in the stakeholder model for the benefit of all stakeholders, not just the shareholders, and adopting a social purpose. One last remark is it's a proverb that I like to use that was relevant in the African savannah as it is relevant in today's business ecosphere. If you want to reach fast, go alone. But if you want to reach far, go together with your stakeholders. Thanks.
Okay. So we're going to hear from Nick Roveta. While we're getting ready for that, I want to tease out a very interesting statistic I saw in Nick's presentation. 80% of brand-funded online videos fail. Nobody watches them. Nick, is that a fair, when Nick's back with us, I can say anything I want about his presentation if he's not listening. It's good. 80% of brand-funded online videos have less than 10,000 views. And I believe it's $20 billion in total that's spent on brand-funded online videos and TV videos. So while we're getting that ready, think about that. Think about how much money is getting thrown down the drain because we're not engaging our consumers. Later on, we can ask questions. One of the questions I think we're going to talk about is failures. People on the panel, some failures they've had, and what we've learned from that in terms of engagement. Good. Yes.
Thanks. Yeah, it works. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nick Roveta. A pleasure to be back in Tel Aviv. Really enjoy coming out here and talking to this group. A little bit about what I'm going to talk about today. So it's going to be about engagement, about disruption. It's about the challenges that brands face. And hopefully it might inspire some new business models from the entrepreneurs in the room, and also give the academics some areas to focus on in terms of what they're working on. So Beyond is AOL On's branded company. We specialize in content distribution. That's where we take a piece of brand video and we distribute that into relevant environments in order to engage audiences. It's really that simple. The company I came from, Go Viral, we founded it in 2005. AOL acquired us in 2011 for 100 million. We've now relaunched the brand as Beyond, and we're globalizing throughout the world. So, branded content, I'm pretty sure everyone's got a good guess of what that is, but just a quick recap. It's where an advertiser creates a piece of content in order to engage an audience to serve a brand objective. Really that simple. So what I thought we'd do is look at a very refined and simplified view of the value chain here, so people in the room understand where this presentation is going to go. So fundamentally, you need to create some video content, whether that's Nike or Group M in conjunction with the creative agencies. They're going to create the assets. They then need to be syndicated to the audience. And then ultimately, you need to measure everything you did. And that is the total product on the screen. It's the branded content value chain. So budgets around $50,000 starting price for one piece of content. But Nike, Coke, Sony easily spend well over $1 million just producing one piece of content. Huge amounts of money goes into this space. That gets produced over about 12 weeks. Then eventually it comes to the syndication companies, Beyond, Taboola, Outbrain, YouTube. Our job is then to get that content and get it in front of audiences, guaranteeing these brands a minimum number of views, and that is the engagement. And ultimately, you need to measure it, whether it's brand uplift, whether it's your total reach, whether it's clicks, impressions, the number of views, the number of play to ends. All has to be fed in to this product. So how are these brands getting on? Let's take a look at what they're up to. Back in 2007, the global top 100 brands produced 300 videos between them that went onto YouTube. That's one video per brand every 4 months. It's not very good. Now they're producing 10,000 pieces of video a year. That's one piece of content every 3 days. It's a meteoric increase in terms of the amount of content that's going online. And the space, we estimate, is probably around 20 billion a year in production and creation alone. So it's a huge industry that's growing like a weed. So is it a good time to be in content creation? Yes and no. If you're good at it, of course. But only 15% of videos generate more than 100,000 views. And 100,000 views is not that much, if you think about it, the number of impressions you could buy with that cost. So something's got to be done to increase the value that advertisers can get from producing this content, because there is a huge trend. We know how many views YouTube are doing, but there is a problem. There's not scale necessarily in the space for these brands. So there's great opportunities to create content, but also to amplify the content, and that means getting more users to watch the content. And I know there's some companies here today that also specialize in that. Let's look at a couple of the brands that aren't doing so well. Moët & Chandon, one of the top brands, global brands, has done 80 views a day over 7 years. I mean, that is, that this failure to engage a new generation of consumers could cost them in 10 years when they've lost that connection. So they've got a lot of work to do. I am impressed that they're doing global. You might see the Asian characters. Some of you will know that the luxury market is the biggest growth in Asia. So they're not doing so well. Diesel, I'm surprised. For such an edgy, provocative brand, I would expect, we'd all expect more views from the kind of content they could create and get away with. So again, they're not really firing on all cylinders. And then machinima, some of you might be familiar with machinima. This is the silverback. 40 billion views on YouTube across their channels, 218 million subscribers. That's fresh stats today. I mean, that's literally the size of Brazil. And remember, Facebook only hit 1 billion registered users not so long ago. These guys aren't far behind. The revenues will follow in these kind of models, but you get the idea. Something's not firing for these brands, and some people have solved it. So with Moe and Diesel having to play catch-up, they've also got new obstacles to overcome. There's more disruption in the space than they'd probably like. So we've done multi-screen. I think everyone gets that problem there. For technology companies like Beyond and AOL, presents challenges in integrating to these different platforms. Of course, it gets harder, because the new gateways to the internet, the Facebooks, the YouTube, the Twitter, the Amazons, this is where users now start their journey on the internet. They're causing problems because they're fragmenting, where users are spending time on their platforms on different devices. And they don't make our lives any easier because they're creating their own content formats. They're creating their own buying models, their own metrics, their own measures of success. So how are brands going to keep up with this new wave of content that's coming? And of course, we know that from your presentation, the platforms are creating their own operating systems. We've got BMW now creating their own software services so you can connect content and other apps into their cars. It's getting crazy. So much fragmentation. So we'll look at the value chain and just look at the type of disruption that's happening here. We've got the guys, the maker studios, the full screens, the machinima. These guys are completely disrupting the traditional creative space. They've flipped it on its head. They're more efficient, they're cheaper, better quality, a fraction of the cost. And the speed to market is not 3 months, it's a week. These guys are really causing problems for the traditional creative agencies. No one's good at really going global yet. You know, we saw from Moe and Chandon, yes, they might be able to produce content for one market, but try and do that at a global scale. It's a real challenge. The cultural differences, the languages, the costs alone. Anyone who's in production will know just how much it costs to produce good content. Syndication-wise, fragmentation is not a new trend. I'm sure you're all aware of it. Devices, platforms, environments, apps. I know we had a presentation on programmatic buying. That's also disrupting the way that money flows from the clients through to the publishers. But it's also going to disrupt the content space too. More challenges, more technology problems for brands. Disintermediation. Facebook's launched their Facebook Exchange. They're now cutting out middlemen, going direct to the money, integrating directly with demand-side platforms. Again, causing problems for brands that are trying to get a strategy where they've got to deal with so many different moving parts. Devices and platforms we covered briefly, but again, it's affecting how you do an effective syndication strategy. Before, you might be able to upload a piece of content on YouTube, and that's the only platform you had to focus on. It's not good enough anymore. You have to be in all these different places if you want to engage with the consumer. The measurements, yes, we can rely on Comscore and Nielsen to do a really good job of providing authority in the market on these metrics. But there's different agendas, and they can't capture everything. They aren't good at doing all these different screens. Huge problems in this space, and it's only going to increase in the level of disruption. So, on to attack and defense. I think it's these companies that are going to be attacking over the next few years. These are the ones that are going to have the most to gain with the disruption that's going on. They're in a really good position, solid momentum, great strategy. And I think these are the companies that are going to really struggle to fend off all these attacks. You know, it's the traditional creative agencies, it's the production companies that have a very different business model being completely disrupted. You know, Yahoo's trying to pivot and do something different now. The traditional publishers, these are the guys I feel that are going to have a lot of pressure from this new way of working. Thank you.
So the last of our presentations is going to be from Ron Haklai from uTest, sort of talking about the power of the crowd and also the challenge for brands. I think the title of this session is The Catch-22 for Brands. Once Ron finishes, we're going to invite our speakers back. We'll open it up for your questions. We'll head to lunch and come back here at 13:45, beginning with a 5-minute fast and cool, and then on to the next panel. When you're ready, Ron, do you want this? Are you okay with that?
Okay, so I think from here you can see what I think about the competition between companies in the media domain today. I think that the companies on the right are competing the companies on the left, and there is a good chance that the companies on the left are winning. I'm going to speak very shortly about our company. We are in the wild testing company. We engage with more than 80,000 testers all around the world. And recently we've been named as one of the most promising companies in the USA. The reason for that is that we help companies, among them almost all the software companies today, thousands of startups, and almost all the media. If I'm talking about media, I'm talking about publishers, entertainment, press. They are all our customers. And this is placing us in a very interesting place where we can simply see what's going on in the world, and we bring those companies the voice of the real people. Now, software landscape is changing, and all the speakers have talked about it and talked about the prices and what you can gain, but the realistic situation is no one is immune. Something has changed fundamentally. Each and every domain is now working with technology in a very different way than it was 5 years ago, only 5 years ago. When we look at where the internet is going, this is the age of apps and mobility. Most of the internet traffic is going to mobile, and it indicates that people are taking technology with them in their pockets, and they are expecting an experience that will help them to live better lives and get experience through their mobile devices of all sorts. All these companies are super brands, and they are today not only creating their products, they are also bringing value to their customers through technology. And I'm not talking about the technology that is built into a Rolex watch or built into a Nike shoe. I'm talking about applications. And we know, and it is very easy to understand, why an application like this is very helpful for Starbucks for better consumer engagement. And we know from facts that this specific application is very successful in contributing to the bottom line of Starbucks. But we also know that if it is not working, it's going to damage the brand. Same we can say about this Ralph Lauren amazing app, which is basically a new type of fashion production with a mobile app, with all the sensors using all the sensors in the iPad. We can understand very well how this can increase, very intuitively, how it can increase consumer engagement, but at the same time, if the experience is not flawless, we know and we understand that it's going to damage the brand. The media companies are in a more complicated situation because traditionally media companies are going together with technology and bringing their value through technology. So what we see here now is that media companies are now turning to web and mobile apps as the way that they're bringing their value and their main source of distribution. What I brought here are the icons of the apps. Each and every company today now need to rethink the logos because the logos must go to an app. This app button should also bring the identity of the company. So it's also a challenge. Now, increasingly, these apps becoming the brand. So what can possibly go wrong? I guess most of you are familiar with the story about Newsweek. They decided to go 100% digital, no more print. Now, when you're making such a decision, some people describe it as suicidal. It's a decision that you must back up with a flawless experience. Otherwise, the price is going to be very, very high. Let's just read what is the comment here. The comment is saying that, terrible. As a print subscriber, I have not been able to so and so and so. Need my money back. This is something that you hardly can go back from. Now, each and every person today has a social megaphone. And think about the act of writing a review. When you act a review, you're actually making an act of engagement. A person that is writing a review, either if it is good or bad, to write a review is an act of a customer engagement. People want to say something, and they're expecting the provider to listen. I want to share with you a platform, a research platform that we recently launched. It's called Applause. And Applause is a way for companies to measure their performance in the reviews space. It's a semantic analysis engine of reviews in the app stores, in the Play Store, and the Windows Store. So with Applause, you can learn and analyze what people are saying and understand exactly what's going on. This specific bad review from Newsweek is on the iPad version of this app. I want to switch to the internet and show you that this is not something that is so, this is something which is rather common, that people are very, they have criticism about iPad apps. Specifically, we can see on Washington Post that people love this application. But this is an iPhone application. This is Applause. And we can see here that there was a huge leap here in some point in time in 2012, and the satisfaction by users was increasing with this iPhone app. But if we go now here to the iPad app, we see that the grade, the Applause score is 35. This is a very low grade. Let's take a look at USA Today. At USA Today, we see they were quite a good shape with their iPad app, but then something happened, and the satisfaction of the crowd dropped dramatically. Now, something happened there. You can analyze it with this platform, but one thing you can see that once it happened, it's very hard to revive. From that moment on, the people gave this 23 grade. This is the analysis that Applause is creating from all the reviews, from analyzing the reviews. Now let's go to Flipboard. Flipboard was created for iPad. And as an iPad breed, it maintained a very high score all along. And people love it and use it all the time. So now go back to my presentation. Not this. So there are technology startups that are invading the media domain. They are not about content, they're about technology. They are taking the content from the internet. I talked about Flipboard. Also, Stevie is a good example. Serendip is a radio station, it's a social radio station. Tumblr is a blog post platform. In parallel, alternative content providers and talents evolves separately and being merged with the apps in the hands of the users. I mentioned here two active blogs which are specializing in investigative reports of a kind that you can hardly see today in the press. So when I'm following this guy Ishton on Facebook, I'm going to get it on my Flipboard eventually. And if Flipboard is giving me a smooth and great user experience, then I'm going to prefer Flipboard over traditional press. So what I'm saying here is that there is a competition here, and the competition is very aggressive. I want to mention another Israeli startup, which is very nice. Look how it looks, and judge for yourself. Webflex is a rather new Israeli startup, and what it is doing, it is aggregating blog posts from all over the world, and with the community of bloggers, it's also maintaining a community of translators, and with that power, it translates blog posts from all over the world and bring it to the users. And it's all wrapped with a very shiny interface with great UX. So the message here is that where my finger is going to go. Is it going to go to the traditional app that I can tell you, there are also our customers are investing huge efforts to make it smooth, to make it good, or am I going to click on Flipboard? If eventually, out of 10 times, I will click on Flipboard 8 times, then we know that this competition is resolved. And that's basically the catch-22. Thank you very much.
I'd like to invite the panel. Can I invite the panelists to come up? While they're coming up, if you have questions, provocative questions, that's the hardest place to reach. But while we're heading up, yeah, you want to speak up? Say your name and your company. Okay. We hand this over. Hold on.
Hi, I'm Victoria Canar. Hi, Nick. Hi, Nick. No. Nick? Unless he changed his name. Hi, Nick. I'm Victoria Canar. I manage an international public relations company, so I was a bit disturbed by your comparison between, the defense and the tech, correct? So, and also Ron spoke a bit about it. I mean, so you, you just put, the old guys, the traditional guys like Condé Nast and Axel Springer, at the bottom, the losers, sort of. And I feel like, I would like you to justify it. What do you mean by it? Why does that mean that in 2013 and looking forward, these guys will stay behind, just because they have traditional press publications? Would like you to justify it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think from a defense point of view, it doesn't mean they're losers. It just means they've got a different strategy they're going to have to use. And on AOL's side, remember, we're also a media owner. So we've got AOL.com, Huffington Post Media Group. So I know those businesses well. From Axel Springer, Condé Nast, those guys have got to transform their business. A lot of their money comes on print. That's where Moët and Chandon used to do all their advertising. Beautiful environments, premium quality, the right kind of demographic. But of course, print's dying. So where are Condé Nast going to get their premium ad revenues from now? Where are they going to create that premium experience, that premium content? How are they going to get money from it? And I can tell you that Huffington Post, what they sold was creating great content for next to no money. That's their business model. How are Condé Nast going to adapt to that? How are Axel Springer going to adapt to that? Of course, they can produce great content, but they can't make it ROI effective, and eventually, they're going to die. Other companies are solving that through distribution. They know that if they get great content and give it to third parties with monetization baked in, either in the form of branded content, they're going to be a winner. And my point is that those guys need to basically think how they're going to play their position. And I feel they're much more defensive right now, as you've got Netflix attacking, Maker Studios attacking, who are eating their lunch. I mean, they've got some issues to work through. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to pick on you.
Okay.
What about the brands?
Well, what exactly would you like me to elaborate on?
You don't have to elaborate. We have other questions.
Okay, sorry.
What brands should be doing for an engaged digital consumer?
Well, basically, what I was saying is that I was not focusing on the tactics, but I was focusing on what they should be. And as I was saying, is that they have to look at themselves in the mirror and speak in a very clear voice and make sure that they act what they speak, they walk their talk. We've had about a month ago in my agency, we had a client that invested millions of shekels in an advertising campaign, which was extraordinary. I loved it. It was really good. And it said that they as a corporation, they understand the clients better than the client understand themselves. But incidentally, on that week, when the campaign was on TV, there was a client in the store which felt that they were too obtrusive and invasive in their in the way they treated him. And incidentally, this client was a person from the media. So he was on the air, on TV channels, in the news. And of course, it really harms the effectiveness of the money that you put in your ad. So it's just that the marketing department forgot to tell the operation department how to behave. So what we're saying to clients now, that they have to put all their acts together and they have to be coherent. Otherwise, all your efforts in building your brand, you can harm them. You can harm them in your own hands. Okay.
So the title is Rethinking Engagement, but we're going to sort of play with that before we leave for lunch. Forget about thinking. What should everyone in this audience do to improve the quality of their engagement? Maybe if each of you could share, what should everyone do? No more thinking. There's enough thinking at this university. Every one of these people is going to go back to their office. They want to be more productive. I'll let anybody, you know what? I'm going to pick on first gets to speak first.
Okay. Thanks a lot. I don't know if I can have anything smart to say about this, but I mean, going back to the Moe campaign, right? I mean, if I wouldn't have seen that, I would have said just try it out. I mean, but of course, 50 views on a global level, it's not a lot, right? No, but taking a bit back to, I think it was you, Nick, who mentioned this whole thing about, fragmentation, right? And I think the master of, quotable quotes, Clay Shirky, once said, what companies consider fragmentation, users consider freedom of choice. And I think somehow it's a very smart way of coining it, but we need to go back to see not only at the content, the quality of the content, but also the model for users accessing it, right? I mean, I think content is only half, and a smart way of really getting to it and, play with it, interact with it, consume it, and so on. That's the rest bit, and that's the user experience part of it.
I completely agree with that. I think that we know that people can create great content. We know that a lot of brands aren't very good at it. And I think that one of the trends is there's a shift from ads to content. If you think back a couple of years when you saw that Sony Bravia advert with the color flashing up on the buildings, I don't know if you know the one I'm talking about, and then contrast that with what Pepsi are doing with the guy who commandeers the driver, the car dealership owner. It's a very different message. Pepsi have got it. They finally cracked it. I mean, I don't think their YouTube channel's phenomenal. It's at 100 million views. But now they get that shift from these beautiful kind of visual experiences that the creative agencies love to make. And now we've got really engaging content. Pepsi have cracked how to be an entertainment brand. So that is the shift I think we need to see from at least brand owners in the room, and also anyone planning a business in this area, about how you're going to manage that situation as brands transcend from a kind of more corporate kind of sheen to an entertainment brand using video as a medium.
I think according to my talk, when we are dealing with engaging our customers, it's not about dragging them into the digital world. It's more about understanding the entire, we call it scenario, from the digital part of it, the physical part of it, and trying to find out the unique value proposition that you bring to the user. It's not just go and produce more and more brand nice videos or display ads. It's really about understanding and analyzing the entire range of the scenario and find out where is your unique value proposition for the user and focus on that.
Last word from Ron.
Yeah. What I think is that there are lots to learn from the startups world. Today, startups are in the game of survival, and this is what they're doing. They survive through excellence. They define their products. They create dialogue channels with their users. They're using design. They're using UX, and they are focusing on execution. I saw lots and lots of apps created by huge brands that you felt like no real attention was put into it. And if they just become a bit more like startups and learn how to put the user in the center, create those dialogue channels, and focus on execution, I think that engagement will be better.
So first of all, I want to thank our panel. Thank you very much.